Are you ready for some smart, plain talk on politics, Israel, and the law? It's the Andrew Parker Show. Let's roll. Welcome to another episode of the Andrew Parker Show. Thank you once again for joining us, as this is episode 484. As we talk politics, Israel, and the law each episode. And, we try to differentiate between truth and fiction, between myth and truth, and also provide you with some historic reference based upon facts, not based upon what you so often, we all so often are hearing in the media, which is grounded on falsehood, blatant, unadulterated falsehood. And it's amazing how people have been peddling of late in false, not just false narratives, but false fundamental facts. So we try to shed some light on that to bring truth back into the public square, back into our parlance and lexicon and discussion. And that's what we're going to do today with one of the best and brightest and one of my favorite people, Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council for Minnesota and the Dakotas, and that is Mr. Stephen Hunegs. I was on the board of the JCRC for about 10 years, a number of years ago. Before that, my partner of many years, Dan Rosen, was on the board of the JCRC, and we viewed that seat on the board as the Parker Rosen seat. That has now gone by the wayside. But we enjoyed the time on the JCRC board, and boy, does the JCRC have an important role in our community, both for Jews and non-Jews alike. More important, perhaps, than ever today, in light of one of the pillars of the JCRC coming under attack, and that is the antisemitism and tolerance for antisemitism, and how it has become part and parcel of discussion. That is, the problems with antisemitism, and in fact, has become a commonplace, acceptable within the discussion of normalcy, anti-Semitic tropes, to the point where we just accept it. But the JCRC consistently has fought against it and is now more than ever. And we welcome to the Andrew Parker Show our good friend, Executive Director of the JCRC, Steve Hunegs. Stephen?
Andy, always a pleasure to appear on your show. I need to have a couple minutes to say something about you and your family and the show over the years. So if you'll indulge me for a moment, will do. How is that? Is that better? Thank you. 500 shows, Andy, nearly 500 shows. Mazel tov. What an accomplishment. And you've brought so many important personalities and perspectives and people to us with great questions, Q&A, back and forth. That's what it's about. Engaged, a conversation, the exchange of ideas, hallmark democracy, by the way. Your family, I think about your father. I was just reading that piece that your dad wrote about when he was in the camps as a liberator as part of the Thunderbird division, and the Jewish men and women who were emaciated and barely had survived came and found a Jewish officer in the United States Army, and they were amazed and shocked and crying and happy. And your dad wrote for them in Hebrew, Eliezer Ben Zavi, right? His Hebrew name and his address in Milwaukee. And what a moment that was. And that's your family, right?
Yeah.
Passionately dedicated to the welfare of the Jewish people, whether it's in the Twin Cities, the Dakotas, wherever in the United States, globally, and to Israel. You and I have been together to Israel, have we
Indeed,
not?
indeed.
So I want to say how proud I am of our friendship and thank you for all the different ways that you serve our community as a lawyer, commentator, uh, in many other respects. Your clients are very fortunate to have you in that role. So thank you very much. I just wanted to start by
Well,
preamble of
thank you,
thanks.
Stephen. I very much appreciate the kind words, the warm words in particular as it relates to my father. And um, yeah, it becomes a part of your DNA, which you know as well, very much so. Prominent family, Jewish family in the Twin Cities, and the work that you have done is just amazing, second to none anywhere in the country in terms of protecting, speaking out as it relates to the Jewish people. Uh, I just did a show, the last show about the handling of the Middle East war and crisis, quite frankly, by Donald Trump, and in particular, his handling of uh, uh, Hezbollah in Lebanon and what it is doing in the northern border and into northern parts of the state of Israel. And Donald Trump telling Bibi to stand down. And I wondered before I got into discussing that topic whether it was being fair to the president, as I am not one to run rabid against Donald Trump, as most people know. I try to take a fair, merited view of whatever the issue is and whoever is in the White House at the time. But in assessing the fact that Donald Trump was effectively saying, allow the missiles to continue to come in from north of Israel, and hope that they don't cause civilian casualties, even though they are targeted to cause civilian casualties. Uh, and if you do that, we'll take care of things down the road, just the way the world and the United States did in 2006 when the world promised Hezbollah would not become rearmed. They got rearmed plus, plus, plus. So no more trusting others. What are your thoughts? We're going to get into, the falsehoods that are said over and over again about the state of Israel and how it compares to decades gone by. But before we do, I am so aghast at the way in which people react to Jewish casualties and to Jews being on the front line of this war. I just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Support for Israel and support for Israelis is critical at this time, right? The world is, in some ways, never been more dangerous, right? With Hezbollah rearming, with Iran far from vanquished, maybe even more powerful than ever. With if whether this is possible or not, but it probably is, a regime that is even more demonic in its hatred of Israel, right? Uh, the incredible rise of anti-Semitism throughout the world, including the United States. Look here in our own beloved, wonderful, democratic country, and you see the left with its BDS hatred of Israel infecting a considerable swath of the Democratic Party. And then you see the Tucker Carlson wing of the Republican Party, right? And where do they make ends meet, so to speak? The old horseshoe theory that the haters on the left and the haters on the right make common cause in their hatred of the Jews, right? And we're seeing it. I'm sorry to report in living color. Nothing that you've already been telling your listeners, but yes, what it goes to is the danger that we face, and whether it's in Israel or whether it's in the United States. What it says, Andy, in my view, and we often agree. Sometimes we have differences of opinion, but that's the hallmark of a friendship: is that we discuss these differences. Is that we need a mature adult leadership, especially to protect that most important relationship between the United States and Israel. Stable, incremental, rational leadership, right? Nobody has monopoly on this, by the way. And the critique that you provided the president is important. Thank you. I think there are ways you can critique Prime Minister Netanyahu, of course. I think there's plenty of areas where he's been wrong. On the other hand, I think he's been dead right about Iran over the years. So I recognize that too. Nobody has a monopoly on the truth. It's when people start believing that they have an infallible worldview that we get ourselves into trouble. On top of that, what accelerates some of the difficulties that we see in the world, and this is well beyond your or my pay grade, as they say. It's just the not even nefarious, overtly awful influence of social media, right, in driving terrible agendas, and we're seeing that right now, again, full bore, and that's another issue with which we all have to reckon, right, because it's impacting every aspect of our lives. Uh, Let me just go out riff one more piece and hopefully tee up what we're just going to discuss, and that is we live in a democracy. Israel is a democracy. My God, the democracies have to stick together. There's nothing more important, literally nothing more important in our world right now or ever. But what arms, what harpoons, what torpedoes a democracy? Disinformation, right? You can't have an informed electorate if all you have is disinformation. You don't have an informed electorate. You rip asunder one of the foundations of democracy. And I now bring it back to the point where we started, and that is what has happened with 10/7 and how Israel, in defending itself against 10/7, has been tarred, not just as the aggressor, but as a committer of genocide, right? And how that is penetrating people's minds. Take a step.
It affects
It does.
everything. It affects how people view even this war. To put a period on the subject of the Iran war and on Lebanon, which the Iranians are demanding, are tied together. Um, Donald Trump has been a great friend of the state of Israel. There can be little doubt about it. I know many of my Democratic friends, disagree because they can't get themselves to say anything positive about the president. But the fact of the matter is, if anybody is looking at the basic fundamental facts, is he is perhaps the greatest president as a friend of the state of Israel. And having said that, his actions in going into Iran and taking out their nuclear program, in taking out the regime, taking out their big aspects of portions of their military, I think all were correct, but only correct if he completes the job. Because if he falls short of that, as many have done in the past many wars the United States have gotten involved in, we continually lose those battles because we don't finish those battles. World War II was a finished battle, and it proved out in terms of Germany is now a part of the Council of Nations. Japan is as well. Who would have thought? Well, Iran could be, but only if we finish the job. And it does not appear that Donald Trump is going to do that, which means the proxies of Iran, including in particular Hezbollah, who the Israelis were either lied about or nobody cared to carry through Resolution 1701 of the UN in 2006. And now they are armed to the hilt. And the world is saying, "Oh, look at what Israel is doing. Look at what it's a whole narrative that is a false narrative that is following on the narrative in Gaza, which we are now going to talk about. The narrative in Gaza, and as it relates to the Palestinians, as it relates to Hamas in particular, is simply become blatant, open disinformation and on steroids because of social media. Uh, but this isn't the first time this has happened in so many similar respects. And, of all the people who can speak about that subject, that the Jews are at the end of the point of the spear, once again, of falsehood and false narratives, nobody better than Steve Hunegs.
Thank you, Andy. Let me offer the following analogy or comparison, okay? That what 10/7 is to Israel responding to defend itself after the most bloody day since the Holocaust is the same thing that happened in the 48 war with Israel willing to compromise, accepting the partition plan, offering peace to the Palestinians, willing to give the Arabs a nation over the area which they had been allotted by the UN vote of 29 November 1947. What happened? First civil war perpetrated by the Arabs, and then all-out war after May 14, 1948. But we need to learn from history, do we not? Andy, I know you are a scholar, you are a student, you are someone who reads. I see a volume of it. I see a tractate of the Talmud on your desk right now. Words matter. History matters because if we don't, then we, in a sense, abdicate our responsibilities to social media and the lies. So I hope if you'll bear with me and we'll have this in a discussion format, of course.
Fabulous. I'm
Uh,
looking forward
I
to
want to go
that.
through sort of the history of 47 and 48 through documents,
Yes.
right? Not through fantasy, not through fable, not how people wish for the world, but in reality. Okay. So let's have a conversation. Can we do that?
Let's do it.
Do it. The other day, maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, there on Facebook, something struck me. Wow, what a great idea. Somebody had posted, not even sure, a headline from the Raleigh newspaper, Raleigh, North Carolina, from May 15, 48, roughly that period, which said exactly that, Arabs' war on Israel, something like that, okay? I thought, well, there's
And it
gotta
was
be
posted in 1948.
yeah, it was no, it was yeah, somebody was posting it to make the point
Yeah, today.
today,
Yeah,
but it was the Raleigh, North Carolina newspaper from
from
mid
1948.
May 48, okay.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, well, there's got to be the equivalents in the Minneapolis and St. Paul newspapers too. So I asked our terrific intern, Alex Baghdadi, Alex, go and see what you can find online about the headlines from that time from the Minneapolis and St. Paul newspapers.
Is Alex the Iranian fellow who?
No, not.
No,
No.
what was his name?
Ali Ali Zeta?
Yeah, Ali Zeta.
Ali,
I keep
he was a dear
forgetting
friend
because
of
I
our
want to
community. He'll be at our
look him
annual
up.
event on Sunday. So
Oh, he
yeah,
will.
yeah.
Excellent.
But here's the point. Here is what Alex found. A series of headlines, probably not so easy to read on camera, but you can sort of get a sense of it. Photocopies, or excuse me, pictures of old newspapers. May I read the headlines to you?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
And date?
I will say, first of all, pardon me, St. Cloud Daily Times, looks like May 15, 1948. Headline: Arabs cross Israel lines, hit Tel Aviv. I think what's next is the most dramatic. Probably can't quite see it on camera, but I'll hold it up in any event. And that says Minneapolis Sunday Tribune. So this is the big newspaper of the week, of the leading newspaper of Minneapolis. Above the fold, headline dated May 16, 1948. Arab armies pour into Palestine. Arab armies pour into Palestine. Am I misreading that in any way?
No, it's absolutely right there. Top of the fold. Arab armies pour into Palestine. Now, see, they weren't there previously. It was Jewish Palestine, which is what Palestine was. But look at that report. Arab armies pour into Palestine. They must have overrun the Jews, right?
Well, here's more.
And by the way, just so everyone knows, because everyone may not, mid May of 1948 was the independence of the state of Israel being announced.
Exactly. And we'll talk about that too, May 14, right?
Yes.
Pre Erev Shabbat, May
Yeah,
14,
this was within
1948.
hours of declaring it, is what is reporting
Minutes,
on.
yes. So here's the Sunday Pioneer Press, smaller headline, nevertheless, the same piece. Headline: Arabs drive 20 miles into Palestine. Okay. St. Paul Pioneer Press, May 18. Egypt orders troops into Palestine. Egypt being the largest Arab nation, the one with arguably the most powerful army.
Yes.
So this is just a cross section of what Alex, thank you, Alex, was able to find. Okay. So let's think about this for a second. Okay. This is the world of May 1948. And the Jews of Palestine, now Israel, right, are fighting a desperate battle for survival. Fortunately, President Truman recognizes
This was
Israel
only a few years after the Holocaust.
free by,
Yeah.
yes, 3 years, 3 years,
I mean,
3 years
this is a beleaguered people.
fighting for their lives. I mean, this is 600,000 Jews of the Yishuv. That was what the pre-state community was known as.
Yes.
Yishuv becoming Israel on May 14, 1948. No heavy artillery, no air force, facing uh, the not only the Arab irregulars that had infiltrated into Palestine, right into the mandate. When I say Palestine, by the way, I mean the Palestinian mandate, that which the League of Nations had given the British to effectuate the Balfour Declaration, which says His Majesty's government looks upon favor of the establishment of a
Of a Jewish state.
Well, he called it a Jewish Commonwealth, right? Jewish national home, pardon me.
National home. Yeah,
Jewish
it was
national
national
home.
home.
Yes,
That's what they said.
just to keep it in some perspective here. And this is what they were facing: Jordanian army, the Egyptian army, Iraqi army, Arab irregulars, and the like. And what did they want to do? They wanted to, I'm sorry to sound like this, but strangle the Jewish baby in the cradle, right?
Yes.
And make sure that there was never, ever an independent Jewish state in our ancestral homeland of 3,000 years, right? So that's the context. But I want to go back even a
Push
little
the
further.
Jews into the sea.
Well, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
From Leo Nasser.
Yeah. So let's go back in time and look at some things. Can we do that? Do you
Yeah,
mind?
let's take a look.
Okay. So I brought with me Peel Commission report of 1936, 1937.
A critical document, by the
Critical
way.
and in typical British fashion, hundreds of pages
Yeah.
analyzing what happened. What they're analyzing is the Arab riots, which were really an uprising, a murderous uprising, starting in 1936, right? And what precipitated it was
Intifada type.
very much so. People stabbing people in the back, throwing bombs, you name it. Right,
Yes.
going on, killing British, killing Jews,
Yeah.
and the like. What ultimately infuriated the British is they targeted British soldiers and things like that,
Yeah.
and forced the necessity of bringing in thousands of British soldiers to restore order in the Palestinian Mandate, for which they had the responsibility under the League of Nations. So the British convened a special commission to try to understand what was happening. I'm sorry I couldn't find it. I was looking for it, but somewhere at the beginning of the report, it makes the very salient point that in no conflict is history more important. It more or less says that because you have to understand the history in order to understand the respective positions of the parties involved. Written in 1937, how much time has passed? Nearly 100 years since then.
Yeah.
And it remains the truth. So you and I are studying history today, like we might be studying Talmud and Chavruta,
Yeah.
because history matters. And Peel taught us that in 1936.
The Peel report is critical for a foundation on the issue.
Filled with math, filled with brilliant writing, as only the British can do it. Uh, the head of the Peel Commission report, Lord Peel, was the former High Commissioner of India. He knew something about how to address intractable conflicts as existed in India. But anyway, I commend it to you because your listeners, because you will learn so much about history. But there's a lot of detail here. What's the essence of the Peel Commission report? Okay. The Jews don't want to be dominated by the Arabs. The Arabs don't want to be dominated by the Jews. The only way to reconcile their competing national aspirations is to partition the state. Okay. And what we're talking about, a Jewish partition, you can see it in these wonderful maps that are provided, was this teeny little statelet, right? Essentially, Greater Tel Aviv, part of the Galileo, which had a Jewish majority. Jerusalem would be an international city. And now underlining most, Andy, most of the partition plan, most of
The Peel Plan.
the Peel plan for most of the Palestine mandate, that's what I was trying to say,
Yes.
would go to the Arabs.
Yes.
Go to the Arabs, right? Rejected it out of
Oh,
hand,
out of hand.
right? And let's also keep in mind the following fact. How desperate was Jewish life at this time?
Yeah.
Chaim Weizmann said, "The world could be divided into two places, places where Jews could not live and places where Jews could not enter." The one place for a brief window where Jews could go was into Palestine in 35, 36, about 60,000 German Jews, because they were fleeing Hitler, having no place to go in the world, went to Palestine. That was one of the things that precipitated the bloody Arab uprising of that time, was the sudden appearance of thousands of German Jews who came because they had no other place else to live, right? So the Arabs saying no, right, not only was uh, not in the best interest of themselves, but was just another blow to the Jews, saying that no matter how difficult the circumstances were, we were not going to compromise it one iota. Okay. So this is history, right? This is not fable. This is not fantasy. This is fact. Okay. 1936, 1937, right? We all know what happened. British issued the white paper that under pressure during the war. They cut off most immigration to Palestine. The Shoah commences, and we lose 6 million of our people, right? Because they have no place to go.
No place to go.
No place to go.
Right. Including the United States.
Including the United States.
In
People should go and see, because there's a traveling exhibit, pardon me, from the Holocaust Museum, United States, America and the Holocaust, and you can read about all the cross currents in America from the 1920s
Oh, yeah.
through the war. It sounds sadly familiar. The awful anti-Semitism,
Oh,
the
yeah.
closing of gates to
It's
immigrants,
horrific.
what was happening at the time. Anyways, a whole different story, but I again,
And
I commend it
there's
to you.
plenty of blame to go around. On the right, the isolationist right, and on the left, FDR was no wonderful friend on that one.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Are you a business owner? Are you losing sleep because you feel your partner isn't carrying their weight, or because you no longer share the same vision or values? Are you no longer comfortable going into your own office? Are you walking on eggshells in the company you built? This is Chris Daniels, founding partner of Parker Daniels Keyboard LLC, a premier litigation law firm headquartered in downtown Minneapolis. For more than 30 years, I've specialized in business litigation and have helped hundreds of business owners resolve troubling business disputes. As a former certified public accountant, I get to the heart of the dispute, including financial issues. Business divorce can be messy, time-consuming, and costly, but doing nothing can cost you a lot more. Not just money, but emotionally, physically, and in your personal life. If you and your business partner no longer see eye to eye, and you're eager to take a proactive approach and make a change, please call me at 612-355-4100 and schedule a consultation. Or visit our website at www.parkerdk.com.
Who's this? Charles Lindbergh.
Lindbergh, yeah.
He makes the speech on September 11, 1941, to your point, Andy. This is probably the most anti-Semitic speech ever given by a major American figure, because he was, after FDR, Lindbergh was the second most well-known American. What did he say? There were three groups responsible for driving the United States towards war. That was 3 months before Pearl Harbor, September 11, 41.
Yep.
The FDR, the Brits, and the Jews. And why are the Jews seemingly successful at what they're trying to accomplish? Because they control the press, Hollywood, and the banks. This is what Charles Lindbergh said to a national radio audience.
Wait, I heard that the other day.
You think it sounds a little familiar?
It was yesterday here.
Well, does history echo? Does history
Yeah,
repeat
yeah.
itself?
What's the name of that that guy who had dinner at the White House and
Nick Fuentes.
yeah, Fuentes. Yeah, he would say that. I
Or
mean,
was on Tucker Carlson's show. saying
Tucker, yeah, Tucker.
The point being, right? I mean, this is what we were facing back in the time, and huge rates of anti-Semitism. I'll show one other thing, because now this is our proud JCRC history. Remember, Lindbergh was from Minnesota, right?
Yeah,
And Sam
unbelievable.
Sam Shiner, our indefatigable, absolutely 100% courageous executive director of the forerunner of our organization, Minnesota Jewish Council, decided this is how it guts. That's the word I'll use right now. This is a story that tells you the guts that he had. He stood up to Lindbergh. In fact, the way he stood up to Lindbergh was by sending a letter to the America First Committee, for which Lindbergh was its spiritual head, and saying, "You need to repudiate Lindbergh, America First Committee, because he's lying about the Jewish people and causing great dissension in this country."
Yeah.
Sam was a tough guy and very smart. I learned all of this by going through our archive because I was very curious about how he handled Lindbergh. Here's a letter, no doubt, that he wrote, written in the name of Arthur Brin, who was the chair of the committee at the time.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is they had clipped all the newspaper stories of the press of the newspapers that ran with the story.
Yeah.
Jews challenge America First Committee. The point was he stood up for the Jewish people. Sam Shiner from Minnesota, he stood up to Lindbergh.
Yeah.
You know the courage that took in those days to stand up to Charles Lindbergh.
And now, it's the same language.
Yeah.
Who are the America Firsters? Oh, those are the isolationists in the Republican Party. Some of them,
Yeah, I mean,
not all. You can't, entirely, but on the concept of America First and some of the policies, they have merit. But I'll tell you, they can quickly swerve into the ditch.
I pull out another piece a little bit out of order, but we're talking about Republicans of a different era. And this is William Howard Taft, 17th
Oh, yeah.
President of the United States, 10th Justice of the 10th Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court.
Yeah.
27th President, sorry. He wrote an article interesting in July 1919 for National Geographic magazine called "The Progressive World Struggle of the Jews for Civil Equality." He took it upon himself to travel the world, studying the condition of Jews. I mean, this is an Ohio Brahmin, right? An aristocrat of the Republican Party.
Oh, yeah.
Former President of the United States.
Yes.
Right? Future Chief Justice of the United States. But to him, equality and civil rights for Jews globally was very important. Right?
Yeah. And he explains in that article why.
Right. In National Geographic, one of the most read magazines ever, particularly in 1990. So he dedicated himself to writing about the issue, right? And they're always good people. And you always have to remember the good people in history. And many people don't know this side of William Howard Taft. They recognize him as a one-term president.
Sure.
Then Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, I think 21 to 30, whatever the year.
He was a very heavy fellow.
He
was a big guy.
He wouldn't play hockey like you. Let's put it that. Let's put it that.
Fleet of foot.
He would have been, if he had any skating ability, he would have been a tough defenseman with that.
Oh,
size,
yeah.
right?
Or goalie. He could get in the way of a lot.
There you have it. So here, another document. What is this? This is the report of the Anglo-American Committee regarding the problems of European Jewry in Palestine. Let's go after the Shoah. And there are hundreds of thousands of surviving Jews.
The Shoah, for all of you, the Holocaust. Many of you know, many don't.
Jews who would not go back to their native lands where they were murdered. And collaborationists participated in the final solution. They're not going to go back and live in Poland or any other place in Europe. Many of them are living in DP camps, right?
Right.
The issue becomes many want to go.
And by the way, they're kicked out of all the Arab countries.
Yes.
Of which they had thousands of years of ancestry and heritage.
Well, you want to use the term Nakba.
Yeah, exactly.
900,000, a million Jews from Arab countries who, after the 48 war, were expelled.
Yeah.
And who took them in? Israel, of course. Right. But to this issue, 90% of the Jews in the DP camps wanted to go to Palestine. That's the only place they trusted. They wanted to express their Judaism in the wake of the Holocaust by going to live.
I've talked to a number of people today who feel the same way. It's the only place I feel safe.
What happened is it became, like so many things, a political cudgel, right?
Yeah.
100,000 Jews. Britain became actually angry at the United States because Truman became something of an exponent of Britain needs to admit the Jews from the DP camps. And so this report was issued saying that Britain, and it was a joint Anglo, and it was British and American commissioners essentially studying the problems. 100,000 Jews needed to be admitted into Palestine post days, immediately given the circumstances of the DP camps. Of course, that was immediately rejected out of hand by the Arabs, and there was nothing about establishment of a Jewish state. It was just purely humanitarian.
Right.
Give these people a decent place to live who would survive the Holocaust and want nothing to do with Europe, right, at this point. So admit them. But no, they could not be admitted in the face of resistance.
Wouldn't allow it.
Wouldn't allow it. Now I want to make another point here, Andy, and that is, who did what during World War II? Well, the Nazis and the Japanese, but let's focus on the Nazis right now. We're bent on world domination. We're murdering Jews. We're murdering the Roma people. We're murdering homosexuals. We're murdering anybody that did not fit their idea of the ideal human, right? But in particular, the Jews threatening to dominate the world, destroy all democracy, and turn the world back into a dark age. Of course, the Allied nations fought back. Britain stood alone. Soviets, the Americans, all the Allies. We were the arsenal of democracy. Your dad was part of the effort. 16 million Americans under arms. You just took the most incredible effort you could ever imagine to defeat Nazi Germany and win the war. But the Arab world was basically sullen. They were either openly siding with the Nazis, like the Mufti
The
of
Mufti.
Jerusalem, or what I would call malevolent neutrality, sitting out the war, only joining the war when it became a condition of joining the United Nations with a declaration of war against Germany. So, it comes time for 1947, right? And the UN, the United Nations Special Committee on Palestine, considering what to do with the future of Palestine. Here we are again, 10 years after Peel, we're right back to the same place, trying to figure out the future of Palestine. But that time, people had some memories, right? Well, who did what during the war? The Jews of Palestine, the Jews of the United States, and the Jews of the Soviet Union, of course, all fought for the Allies, right? 500,000 Jews in the Soviet armed forces, hundreds of thousands maybe in the American armed forces, and the British armed forces, all fighting for liberty and democracy.
Jews fighting for liberty and democracy.
In the Arab world, they were either fighting for fascism and the Holocaust or sitting out the war in their hands, right? And so people looked at it and they said, well, we know who at this point to reward, and we know how to advance justice for the people who fought for justice in the war. And when it came down to that dramatic vote on 29 November 1947, this was still in the memory of people in the world. Who did what during World War II? Of course, no one remembers that anymore.
No, they don't remember it anymore.
They don't remember anymore. And so just think about that, Andy. I know you do, but we should all think about when you're trying to sort of, as we used to say in the law, apportion the equities. Right?
Yeah.
Over time, just remember who did what in civilization's most desperate hour.
Well, that's what is being asked, questioned today. The problem is the foundations of truth and falsity, the blatant false narrative that has been pushed and that is being accepted, even in foundational spaces of our society, of Western civilization, being accepted are these false narratives of today, just as they were accepted back at the time of independence. But when you look at, for Israel, but when you look at who it is that lines up on the side of good versus evil, and I'm going to just use those phrases because it's not a close call. It's not like, well, it might be good, it might be evil, I'm not quite sure. Gray area. No, it's not what the Palestinians, what Hamas did on October 7th is not a close call as to the heinous atrocities, as to the evil, the evil incarnate at its very foundation that they engaged in. And the Israelis, the Jews, and the acts of kindness, self-preservation, certainly survival, and fighting for freedom and liberty to liberate Gaza from what it was, and now to do it in Iran, and now to do it in Lebanon, hopefully. I spoke yesterday about the fact that if we do this right, Iran will come into the fold of the Abraham Accords. Lebanon will, even Syria will, and a Palestinian state will be created because it will be fertile ground to create it. But the only way to do it right is not to say, "Oh, we need peace right now today." Why? Because it's not a real peace. It is a an act of ongoing, continuing war if we don't solve the problem.
Think about Yitzhak Rabin of blessed memory for a moment, right? Now, that may seem like ancient history to some people, but his spirit very much lives. And back in the time when he was a signatory to the Oslo Accord on behalf of Israel, he said, "We have to address the Palestinian question because the Iranian nu- in- I would say the Iranian monster lies over the horizon, and we have to address the Palestinian issue in order to deal with Iran." By my lights, you'll argue with me, but nevertheless, by my lights, I don't. Once we lost Rabin, and then the election, uh, Perez lost the election. A lot of a significant portion was due to the Islamic Jihad terror campaign, the bus bombing campaigns in 97, 98. Don't get me wrong on that point, but the opportunities were missed. Right? But then on the other hand, you had President Clinton saying the other day that peace is impossible because the best possible deal ever, the one that he had labored so hard, first with Rabin, and then with Perez, and then with Barack.
Omer,
Barack.
and then Omer after that.
Yes,
Yeah,
right. No, no, no.
right. No to all of them.
I mean, I think we always have to recognize that mistakes were made on the Israeli side, but they are dwarfed by the nihilism. I guess that's the only word you could use. Nihilism, the continual no's, despite what was been offered to Palestinians over the years, right?
Yeah, and when you talk about the false narrative that has followed uh, October 7th, and the false narrative that was foisted, pushed out in 1947, 1948. Uh, the comparisons are real, but it is not difficult to line up, or it shouldn't be, with the side that is on good versus evil.
And to that point, Andy, you asked the question, what is it that we can do, right? You see, and rightfully so, these tremendous forces of huge velocity now via social media that are helping to unleash the most venomous anti-Semitism that you can imagine, right? And it's all true. There are things we can do. One of which is we need wholesome, authentic history. I'm not talking about history that whitewashes the United States. That doesn't do anybody any good, by the way, because we're a proud people and a brave people, and we face our historical warts, as we always have. But as you know well, there are people who are trying to convert American history into something that is unrecognizable.
Right.
And what starts there gets even worse when it comes to Jews and others. Do things like the following. Our dear friends, the Fagans, Ron and Diane Fagan, their incredible World War II museum in
Mhm.
in Granite Falls, which I was just there on Tuesday, right?
Oh, really?
Yes, I go there. They're great friends. Uh, People need to go and see. And here's a family completely dedicated to the telling of World War II history because Ron's father was a GI who landed at Utah Beach and fought all his way to the end of the war. And he honors
Wow.
his father's memory. It's incredible what he's built over the years. I got to know them because his wife Diane, a power in her own right, told my friends in the National Guard 10 years ago they'd be calling me because they were creating their own exhibit about the Holocaust, which they feel is very important as part of World War II to tell the story of the Holocaust. And they're so completely dedicated to telling that story that they are great friends of the Jews. And in some way, no entity, no people in Minnesota, maybe in the upper Midwest, in a way, have dedicated themselves more to helping our people than the Fagans, right? by what they tell, the story they tell in Granite Falls, Minnesota.
Sure.
They sent me a picture a couple days after October 7th. They had raised the flag of Israel outside their corporate headquarters of Fagan Construction just to demonstrate solidarity with the Jewish people. Along these lines, starting in September, the new Minnesota Military and Veterans Museum will open 40,000 square feet under the direction of my great friend Randall Dietrich. Okay. And that's all about telling the story of Minnesota's role in the military in all of our country's wars and the dedication of our men and women who have fought for our country, right? Doesn't mean that they tell history in a partisan manner, not whatsoever, but they tell it in an authentic manner, right? And this is the way that we combat falsity through information, through truth. And these are the places we have to visit, whether it's the Fagan Museum in Granite Falls, whether it's the Minnesota Military and Veterans Museum right outside of Camp Ripley, 40,000 square foot.
Wow.
These are the, you should say, the ramparts on which we fight the battle for truth. Okay, and maybe that sounds a little hyperbolic, but given the times in which we live, it's accurate.
And it's important. We're talking to Steve Hunegs, Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council. We're talking about truth versus falsity and the narratives that play out and what it causes in terms of the growth in anti-Semitism, the growth in hate, regardless of who. Now, Steve, you talked about the Oslo Accords, et cetera. You and I probably disagree about the value of the Oslo Accords for the state of Israel and the predictability of what would happen if we entered into the Oslo Accords. And I would argue it did happen, and until the Palestinians, until the Arab world wants to join hands, wants to give a big bear hug to the Jews and the state of Israel on this very small strip of land, uh, there's going to be war. And Yasser Arafat made sure when he was the leader of the PLO and the Palestinian people to cement for generations the false narratives about the Jewish people. And that has so greatly, it's still uh, uh, causing great difficulty in the state of Israel as kids now from that time 30, 40 years ago are now leaders in the Palestinian community and even elders in the Palestinian community. And that is what their history and background is about. So, Stephen, let's close with just a couple of remarks, comments from you about maybe some optimism.
Oh, sure. That's a great idea. Andy, I know you too well. You're always an optimistic guy.
Indeed. Indeed.
Like when I ever see Andy, he's got a smile on his face. How about this past year? Just want to talk about our relationship with the Catholic community, right? This was the 60th anniversary of the Nostra Aetate. That was the Vatican document which reset theologically relations between Jews and Catholics. The document said that anti-Semitism was a sin against God, that Jews are not collectively responsible for the death of Jesus. If you squint, maybe you can see some justification for the state of Israel, and certainly the idea that we don't believe in, despite the Christian belief in the resurrection of Jesus, we don't necessarily see it as supersessionist. That is, that uh, the, the Jewish covenant with God hasn't been replaced by the Christian covenant. What they see as the Christian covenant, it's can be a little tricky on the theology, but what the most important piece of it, what it has done to improve relations between Jews and Catholics, particularly in North America, particularly in the United States, and our partners, the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, Archbishop Hebda. Jewish community could not have a better friend than Archbishop Hebda. Uh, J. Phillips Center at St. John's, J. Phillips Center at University of St. Thomas, Benilde, St. Margaret's High School, all partners in a variety of activities. We had Rabbi Abraham Skorka, the dear friend of Pope Francis. They wrote a book
Yes.
together, who was our scholar in residence for 3 or 4 days of programming. It was just remarkable, the amount of goodwill, friendship, love. These are the things that we can see, right? And it should also be noted that the Protestant denominations have had their own equivalents of the Nostra Aetate too. But in particular, it's most in a way, it's very powerful amongst Jews and Catholics, and you're able to celebrate it over the course of the year in many different ways.
Outstanding, excellent. Years gone by before that document, it was difficult.
Yeah, it was
It
difficult.
was very difficult as the Catholics continued to have antithetical attitudes toward the Jews.
But it shows you uh, reconciliation is possible.
Yes,
It shows you addressing the past is possible. It shows you envisioning a better future is possible.
and that's what we all have to focus on because together we can bring about love and peace in the world. And of course, that is what we want, but we should not be thinking we live in it when we don't, wishing that things were one way when they are another. It is dangerous to do so, which is why we analyze, discuss, debate, open discussion, and respect with opinions that agree and even those that disagree as we work toward truth. Thank you very much, Steve Hunegs, for joining us on the Andrew Parker Show. Again, episode 484. And what a treat it has been, as always. A repeat visit from Steve Hunegs, Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Minnesota and the Dakotas. Why don't you give us the website people can visit and learn?
I just have to type in as JCRC of Minnesota and the Dakotas.
Look at that,
Look at that.
JCRC of Minnesota and the Dakotas. And you too can catch up on all that we are working on. The voice of the Jewish community, the JCRC. Stephen, thank you very much for joining us today.
As ever, Andy, or as your show goes, Andrew Parker Show. Thank you for all you do for the community. You're a wonderful friend and a great advocate. Say thank you on behalf of JC Grace, our board chair, and my wonderful colleagues. We have an outstanding team at the JCRs.
Thank you. And until next time, first go to parkerdk.com, learn about preeminent litigation law firm and sponsor of this show in downtown Minneapolis. We are doing some amazing and strong, aggressive work as we speak. Again, until next time, be kind to your neighbor.
For more smart, plain talk, go to theandrewparkershow.com. Learn about all of your listening and viewing options. And remember, all the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. This episode of The Andrew Parker Show is sponsored by Parker Daniels Keyboard. Mark Twain once quipped, "A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. When you are lied about and it spreads, the resulting mayhem and destruction can be, and often is, disastrous." Hi, this is Andrew Parker, co-founder of the Parker Daniels Keyboard Law Firm. I recently handled a high-profile defamation lawsuit on behalf of a luxury home real estate agent whose business was decimated by falsehoods spread about him. After nearly 2 years of litigation and 2 weeks of trial, the jury came back with a verdict of more than $2 million for our client. Parker Daniels Keyboard. We litigate cases, we try cases, and we win cases. With a record of excellence in achieving extraordinary results, Parker Daniels Keyboard lawyers have consistently won huge verdicts for its clients in the areas of defamation, civil rights violations, regulatory battles, and intellectual property theft. For wise counsel and winning results, contact us at Parker Daniels Keyboard, premier law firm in downtown Minneapolis.